welcome to another edition of WNK, the weekly AEW news kick. I am your host, Tom. We're not joined by Patrick this week, so I'll introduce this one first. He is the chicken tikka masala of human beings, AEW sound engineer, Jack Griffin.
I don't know if that's a compliment, but I like it, you know. Chicken tikka.
The
thing is, right, people slag off a chicken tikka masala. I like a chicken tikka. I feel like that does sum me up because I'm just such a neutral kind of human being, you know. I'm just a basic, you know.
You're a meat and two veg, missionary position sort of guy.
Peep show reference, love it.
I think it's a bit lewder than that in the show, but yeah. And because we're not joined by Patrick, we are joined by a special guest. He's a bit of a provocateur on our WhatsApp group chat, so this will probably be quite heavily edited episode. How's it going, Liam?
Hello, I'd use the term special very, very carefully to describe me, but point
Your
taken.
mum says you're special.
Yeah, she does.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your name? Where'd you come from? No. Tell us about how you got into wrestling, how long you've been into wrestling. You're an AEW fan, I take it, or she wouldn't be here.
Well, from what I can remember, I used to watch it with my uncle when I was younger. And I'd always ask him what happened on Raw is War every week. That's how long ago it was. And
when around would this have been?
I'd imagine, I would have been around 3 or 4 at the time, so 1999,
Oh,
2000.
wow, so really, yeah.
Yeah, but I actually didn't start properly watching wrestling week in, week out until after the start of the Ruthless Aggression era, where it was Cena and Batista on top. Before that, I never really that much.
You poor soul.
Yeah, I know. I missed all of the Attitude Era pretty much. So when everyone says, "Oh, it was brilliant," I can't really comment because I weren't there for it.
It's never too late to go back and watch it. I do notice that a lot of people see it through kind of rose-tinted glasses, though. The wrestling quality, if you go back and watch it now, was kind of the same or even worse than it is. Do you know what I mean? It's still very sports entertainment style. It was mainly mainly just crazy stuff happening every week that made it kind of watchable.
I mean, this isn't really relevant as well, but as a random fun fact, I've never watched a WCW or an ECW event on the network or anything. So I don't know whether I'm missing out on an absolute goldmine of a pay-per-view out there, but
I think especially with WCW, it's a bit hit and miss, obviously, because there's a reason they kind of went a bit. You know, I think at one point, like pretty much like 60% of the roster were in the NWO, so it kind of got a bit silly. One thing I find is quite a common theme when Hugh filled in for Jack was he was saying we all kind of seem to have exposure to wrestling and then a gap, and then when we actually got into wrestling. So I mentioned to Hugh, for me it was, I probably mentioned a bit before that on an intro episode as well, that it was being given pogs with wrestlers on as a kid from like the Yokozuna, Shawn Michaels kind of era. And then like Bret Hart and all that. And Jack's first exposure was me watching wrestling as a kid, and then he didn't really watch wrestling. And so we all kind of got into it very, very casually, then nothing, then got into it properly. Do you know what I mean? It seems to be the same with you. You had, you know, an exposure to it when you were younger, and then a break, and then properly into it. So what do you watch now? AEW, obviously, I assume.
Watch AEW. I've started to get into New Japan very, very recently. I have this thing where for the last 3 or 4 years, I'd watch a Wrestle Kingdom and be like, oh, okay, this is brilliant. I'm going to make more of an effort with New Japan, and then wouldn't make more of an effort. Yeah. But I'm determined to try and change that this year.
No, I've been there.
Yeah. I watched MLW for the first time yesterday, and it was a pretty good show, so I might watch more of that.
MLW is really fun, is how I describe MLW. MLW is really fun, for sure.
And my relationship with WWE, the best I can describe it is I don't give a fuck about it. Sorry if you're not allowed to swear on the podcast.
No, you are. We put ourselves explicit now just to allow it.
We tried for exactly 1.5 episodes to not swear.
And then we just gave up because we're not them people.
Yeah, I don't really care for WWE, but I always will like pop my head in around Rumble season to Mania season, and then after that I just give up on it again when I see Baron Corbin versus Elias for the 5th time in 5 weeks. So yeah,
I had Baron Corbin in our Royal Rumble draw. Wasn't a fan.
Who had Elias?
Hugh. Hugh had the Hugh's. Oh, okay. So frequent listeners, if we have any of them, will remember Hugh from filling in for Patrick. Hugh drew potentially the worst 3 numbers from like a Royal Rumble sweepstakes I've ever seen. He had Elias, The Miz, and I can't remember his other one. I I don't know if anyone else remembers it. It probably goes to show how much of an impact he made.
Literally.
I remember, and his top one out of the 3, which means the last one eliminated, still only came in 24th out of 30. So that was the point where all 3 of his guys have been eliminated. It wasn't pretty. Right. There are no particularly breaking news stories, unless I've missed something enormous this week. So we'll dive straight into our point-by-point review of Dynamite. So we started with Darby Allin versus Joey Janela. Let's go with guess first. What did you make of this, Liam?
It was a pretty good match for what it was. Decent pace on it. I mean, I personally think it would have been a better match if it had like a weapon-based stipulation behind it, considering the history of both men and the matches they've had before. But that's just me wanting to see people get hurt and being an absolute prick. I don't know whether this was noticed as well. I can't exactly remember the exact moment, but there was one point in the match where it sounded like the crowd was chanting "Oh Enzo Amore," and I was very confused.
I tell you what that is, and I've got that as a complaint written down here. That's Austin Gunn grossly misusing the Seven Nation Army chant.
We've got to say, I know we always pin the blame on Austin Gunn. What if it's not Austin Gunn? What if it's his brother?
Then I will issue a formal apology. But until then, it's Austin Gunn. He just doesn't get it, Austin Gunn. It's da 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 da, but he like elongates words where he goes, "Oh, Darby Allin," and he did it with someone else the other week as well, John Moxley. That's who he did it with. It's like, stop trying to make it a thing. It's not working. Like, just wait for it to naturally be the chant for somebody. It winds me up, I'm telling you. What did you make of the match overall, Jack?
Overall, I liked the match. I mean, yeah, they've both got a bit more of a hardcore background. So like Liam said, it would have been nicer to have a bit more, like maybe a stipulation to it, see a bit more weapons. Because like Liam, I like my hardcore matches. But I like to see my matches have a bit more violence. But in terms of the match, for what it was, it was all in ring actually. I don't think they left the ring, did they? Unless for a couple dives, I think. But there was a nice couple elements to it. I know a spot where I think it was Joey Janela's heads were in between the ropes and Darby, or was it the other way round, where they used the rope to kind of hit back? Yeah. And I thought that was quite nice using the rope like that. I thought there was a couple nice spots with Darby specifically, but no, I was a bit annoyed about what was said last week, which applied to this match, which you probably got down your notes where. The whole element of the promo last week was like Team Taz were like, "Oh, we're going to have a presence in that match, okay?" And then Sting was like, "Well, Then Sting was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to be there as well." So I expected to see at least Sting ringside to have some sort of like, if there was a presence, some sort of protection. Neither of them there. And when we talk about something that happened later on the show, I'll bring this up again because there's a point I want to say now. But I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't watched, so we'll do it like that. But yeah, so that annoyed me a little bit. But in terms of the match, wasn't the best night of the match. It was never going to be with what the main event was, which we'll talk about later. But I thought it was a nice match. It was enjoyable. There were definitely worse matches on the show, so I'd probably give it like a 3 out of 5, maybe 3.5 out of 5 max.
I don't know if you guys are watching the same match as me. I give it a 4.25 out of 5. I thought it was banging. I love the work rate of this match. I thought the variations on the suicide dive we saw, where we had Joe Janela come out of the ring with a flying elbow. I think they called it an elbow suicider. I think Excalibur probably made up on the spot, and then Darby came out like with his back, like a coffin drop suicide dive, which was amazing. And then that springboard coffin drop. That was one spot. The German suplex was amazing.
Yeah, that was one spot that definitely got me as well. That was one I meant to mention. I forgot to. Yeah, that was really sick.
Just the pace was great and brutal. You know, obviously there wasn't a lot of storytelling available. There wasn't a lot of story available to tell there because, you know, it was one of those matches that you detest so much, where they just set up a title match out of nowhere. But I mean, it lost points to me because the finish, there was zero build up to that finish. Darby just hit an STO and then the coffin drop and then it was over. I was like, where did that come from? There was no kind of reversals at the end. There was no big you know.
I've noticed that a lot with Darby matches though. There seems to be when Darby, and it happened in the Brian Cage match, didn't it really, where it kind of, he just comes out of nowhere and just wins it without really any build up.
It wasn't even like, I don't mind out of nowhere finishes with like roll-up finishes. You know what I mean? That's fine. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't feel like the match was over at all.
As we say,
I don't just mean in that it didn't run long enough.
Nah.
It didn't feel like the spot to end it.
Well, as we compare with like New Japan, it's like there's a health bar in like wrestling. It didn't feel like that with this match. That health bar was going down.
But yeah, no, great to see Joe Janela back. I would love to see Joey pushed to the moon. Do you know what I mean? I feel like maybe they don't want to reward him because he's very open about not giving a shit about being in shape and stuff. He drinks Jack Daniels and he smokes and he's like, I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? So maybe they don't want to reward that behavior, but he's got the wrestling chops. I mean, they mentioned these two had guerrilla warfare matches before, and you could see that, I think, in the chemistry. It was great. It was, for me, do you know what I mean? And even JR said on commentary, he said Janela can be as good as he wants to be. Do you know what I mean? So he's quite. We've seen him get great matches out of other people before, and he's definitely got the gimmick, I think, and the attitude. So it's not going to happen. He's not going to get pushed to the moon. But I would have liked to see it. But yeah, I thought it was my match of the night until a specific match later. Obviously.
Do you think, as you said, they don't want to reward that behaviour? Then of that they want their stars to be 100% like committed. Like this is a lifestyle. And it is a lifestyle, isn't it? Like you see how
Possibly.
Cody like.
But I don't know. I can't imagine him going backstage and then going in, because this came up in the whole thing with the Undertaker semi-controversy. It wasn't really a controversy, where he talked about how the locker rooms are too soft now on the Joe Rogan podcast, and talked about how they've all got video games in the locker rooms now, essentially calling like the millennials and Gen Z wrestlers like pussies, essentially. And Joey stuck up for them, and then they were like, "Oh, you one of them." He was like, "Oh no, don't get me wrong. I'm not playing video games when I go backstage. Back into the locker room. I'm downing a bottle of Jack Daniels and lighting up a cigarette." Do you know what I mean? So it's like maybe they don't want to like have this as the face of the company. That's exactly why he should be pushed, because he's the bad boy. Do you know what I mean? What did you expect? He's living the gimmick. Do you know what I mean? So this took us on to a really good promo from Jon Moxley, I thought. I won't come to Jack, even though I came to Liam first before, because we had a good long conversation there without Liam interjecting. So Liam, do you have any thoughts on this, on Jon Moxley as a deliverer, that's difficult to say, of a promo in general, of his persona, thoughts, essentially?
I'm going to be honest, I don't really have that much, other than I think the belt, the IWGP US belt's lovely. It's an absolutely brilliant belt, I feel. But
beautiful, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It's one of my favourites. I don't want to sound like Booker T, but I think it is in my top 5. As for the
five, my favourite, whatever it was, Shucky Ducky.
Shucky Ducky Quack Quack. Literally every week he'd have a different fave 5. But the only other thing I have to say is that I do love Mox, and I think his promos are brilliant, but it feels to me like he cuts the same type of promo every week. Like, hey, insert wrestler here, you want to fight, don't you know who I am? I'm Jon Moxley, we can fight anywhere, etc., every week. Whether it's Lance Archer, Kenta, Kenny Omega, I don't know, Don Callis, Sonny Kiss, whoever. It's literally the same thing every week promo-wise. And like I said, he cuts his promos brilliantly, but it'd be nice for him to talk about different things every now and then.
But delivery is flawless and purposeful, isn't it? Do you not think?
Yeah, I feel that he has obvious emotion, and he knows what to say, and he times it well. But I just feel it's the same style of promo that's cut from him all the time. There's no difference between that and one the week before.
Yeah, I see where you come from. You got anything to add to that, Jack? Or
not really too much. Just to reiterate a point you said. It might have been last week or the week I wasn't here with you, but I just love the kind of. The fact that he's got a presence now, as you said, he's got that kind of walk, he's got that kind of aura about him. I've been watching a lot of New Japan YouTube stuff where they've been really pushing, obviously, his match with Kenta and all that. And they did a little interview, it was broken into 2 parts. And I just love hearing him talk. That man could talk about anything to me, and I think he'd have my attention. And I do agree with Liam. It is the same stuff, but I think it's just the way he talks about it makes me forget it. He said this millions of times, because the delivery so raw, and he seems like he's not one of these kind of, I don't know. You could tell it kind of doesn't feel scripted in a way. It feels like he's genuinely saying it and he's a genuine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I will say Liam has a point. What I would say is, does it matter that it's the same stuff all the time? Because these are kind of very kind of binary wrestling characters. We give all of them kind of a character and, run with that character that you're given. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how much range do you expect them to have when, like, did Stone Cold cut the same promo all the time? Like, maybe, do you know what I mean? And that's why they have these catchphrases they used to slip in there. Like, that's not so much a thing with wrestling anymore, but it definitely used to be. So it's like, is it, it's the same stuff as long as he keeps it fresh and keeps slipping in stuff. Like, I mean, there was a few really good sound bites from this one. He called called Kenta a dork, which I just thought was hilarious. He said, "You got the briefcase, you walk around looking like a dork."
Yeah.
It's just so unnecessary, but brilliant. And talked about like there being a Bullet Club Facebook group or something.
That bit was great, actually. Yeah, I liked that.
And like I said, his delivery is probably the 70% of promos. Do you know what I mean? Is less what you say and how you say it, and he's flawless, I think, in his delivery. But yeah, no, point very well taken, Liam. Then we went on to another promo. It was Sammy and MJF. Sammy walked into the locker room with the rest of the Inner Circle, dismissed everyone except MJF, and shit went down. Do you want to elaborate on what went down and your thoughts on it, Jack?
I will take the floor, Tom. Wow, this was a really powerful segment for me. I mean, we all knew it was coming. We say this all the time. We as viewers are so aware of what's going on, and the Inner Circle aren't. Whatever he was saying to Santana, Ortiz, Jake Hager, Wardlow, they obviously had some sort of impact, as what will be spoken about later, but they obviously all left the room. MJF and Sammy were talking there. Sammy obviously opened up.
It was great how they did that. Just to quickly interject, it was how long they let that silence hang with that many of them in the room before they all left was brilliant. I thought.
Definitely. And so Sammy says his piece, says, "I know what you're up to," all this kind of stuff, opens up. And then obviously slyly, I didn't actually see it start, but the obviously caught at the end. MJF was recording the whole time. MJF obviously using his words, and Sammy then says the quote, "What you trying to say? Like, I'm trying to take over the Inner Circle, Sammy." And MJF then goes, "Yep, that's exactly what I wanted here." Stops the recording, which for me is the only problem I have with this segment, because everything MJF's done up to now, as a viewer, you know what's going on, but the Inner Circle haven't, and it's been very sly, and it's been all these little things, and this was such an obvious thing, which for MJF seemed a bit out of character for me, to make it so obvious. But I think the only kind of point to back that up would be something like, Sammy already knows, so it's kind of like, why would he still try and hide it?
I had an issue with this specifically in that I mean, okay, so don't get me wrong, I agree with you. I loved this segment. I thought kind of MJF kind of gaslighting Sammy a little bit was awesome. I thought, he's the best. It's one of there's 3 storylines I would consider great in AEW right now, which I haven't been able to say that about. I love AEW, but I wouldn't have said they've had great storylines because they never stick with one long enough to have had 3 on the go at once. So it's a good time to be an AEW fan right now, and this is one of the reasons why. What I will say is that they started this promo with Sammy saying, "Oh, I've brought a cameraman with me. I watched last week." Do you know what I mean? I watched last week. I can see what you're doing, right? So they've set this precedent that they're all going and watching. He can go and watch the show. The evidence is on camera. So why then is MJF recording him to try and catch him out when Jericho can? I see Liam's clapping.
Liam, you need to unmute yourself for that. Liam was giving Tom a round of applause.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Would you like to interject, Liam, on what I've said there?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but this is literally, obviously, this is before the podcast started, and I said to you about, what I'd pick for that thing. This was it, because him saying the cameraman stays, I think, the entire point of the segment. Even if MJF was recording him on his phone or whatever, the entire thing is being recorded anyway, because the cameraman's there, so Sammy can just show Chris Jericho, what had happened pre the punch.
Absolutely, man. And I will say that this, it's not exactly again. I thought this was a great segment, so I won't. What Liam was referring to there was me giving it my screamer of the week. I don't think this segment as a whole was bad enough to warrant that. What I will say is that I think this is a bigger problem with AEW, where they're trying to present this realistic presentation of wrestling, and I don't think it calls for it. It's wrestling, do you know what I mean? It's guys going in there pretend fighting and stuff. So I don't think it needs to be like they're really confining themselves. You know, there used to be this thing where like they just didn't acknowledge the cameras were there. It was like a soap opera, do you know what I mean? And it worked really well for Lucha Underground. It worked well for WWE in the Attitude Era. That's kind of what I want to see in a way. I mean, I don't want them to absolutely take the piss with it, like have major things that people don't know about happen on screen just because they didn't see it, like, and they weren't watching the show. Do you know what I mean? Like, if something massive happens on the show, then, you know, someone's got to know about it. But like, don't have someone get away with ridiculous scheming behind someone's back. But you don't have to provide yourself cover for literally everything. Like, this is the thing I was talking about with the Miro in the wedding. It was very meta with him kind of calling on past stuff in WWE, do you know what I mean? And the weddings and wrestling tropes. And they just feel like they're really constraining themselves with the stories they can tell by everything being completely open, like everyone knowing everything because it's on TV. I think they're kind of limiting themselves to the stories they can tell in that, and the kind of mystery and stuff they can do with that. Because, do you know what I mean? I think
they kind of trying to get the best of both. They want it to be like a soap opera, as you say, as wrestling should be. It should be, you know, we should forget the cameras are there, and everything the wrestlers experience should be like it's real life. But unfortunately, then they have the elements where, you know, you get told that Chris Jericho says he watches every like show afterwards, and then it's kind of like, right, so what are you trying to be? Do you want everyone to see each other, and then, as you said, Tom, then you constrain yourself with storylines, or do you want it to be like a soap opera kind of thing where it's like it's real life and everything going on has like these consequences? And it's just kind of, I think it's one of those issues with starting a brand new company where they're still trying to, I know it's obviously a year or two in now, but they're still trying to find their feet, aren't they? And they're still trying to see what gets the best response. I guess that's kind of what they're trying to do. I don't know.
True. Then we had Cody and Lee Johnson versus Pretty Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi. Am I?
you mucked this up last week, didn't you?
I'm just gonna Bononi. Either way, his name is Caesar. That much we know. Jack's just cracked open a beer, I've just seen. So that's really, really professional, Jack. I'm going to call you out on air just before we get into this match.
Well, we are the most unprofessional AEW review podcast, and proudly. And so, as most AEW review podcasts, you know, the episode airs Wednesday night, which is, I don't know what Liam's doing.
Liam has tampons up.
But yeah, so most AEW review shows, obviously,
we're just going to breeze over that then. Okay.
we are. Obviously, the show goes up Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So they obviously do their recordings on Thursday as normal people and get up ASAP. We're recording on Friday night, and I just finished a long week at work, so I thought beer time. So, you know, things could get wild.
We've got to have a selling point, and ours is we are the most outdated podcast you can find for AEW. Number one. If you find another, we'll beat it. We'll upload it on the Thursday after the next Dynamite if we have to.
If you're looking for an AEW review with one day relevancy, then we are the podcast for you.
Not the podcast for you. Well, I think it gives us some time to reflect on the episode, we'll say.
Exactly.
That's exactly why we do it. Cody and Lee Johnson versus Peter and Cesar, whose name I can totally pronounce. I'm just choosing not to. Yeah, this was a nothing match for me. This was an absolutely nothing match for me. I got nothing to say about it. I know Liam's got. I actually do have things to say about it. I've got things to say about kind of what happened after, but the match itself, it was just 10 minutes of nothing for me. But I know Liam has some thoughts about one specific point in the match as well.
I just want to start off by saying that I don't think I'm the only one here. I hate Cody's new theme. I'm gathering it's a TNT decision because it's Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, they got that crossover appeal and with their other show, and also it's Snoop Dogg. I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. We think this is why JR's still in the job because of name recognition. Do you know what I mean? And I get it. I get it to a certain extent. If you can get Mike Tyson and Shaq on your show, then it gives you legitimacy because they're not small names in the world of sport. Do you know what I mean? Just do it right. Do you know what I mean? And having Snoop Dogg's give a half-assed verse that's then mashed into your existing entrance theme by Downstate is not doing it right. I don't think. No, anyway, sorry I agree with you. Anyway, so carry on.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I liked the story behind the match with the fact that Cody was injured, which I'll get into shortly, and Lee had to basically do it on his own. And to speak about obviously what the post match, but before that, my little thing is I don't think Cody's actually injured. I think it's just a way to write him off for Revolution.
100% work because he got I can't remember who it was he got up. Let me have a look. I've probably got it written down. That's really blown the illusion that I'm recalling all this off the top of my head. No, I haven't got it. He went for a fireman's carry, I think, on somebody, and he wouldn't have done that if he was already injured. Do you know what I mean? Because that was after he got quote unquote injured, that he went for the fireman's carry, and then he couldn't do the fireman's carry and dropped to his knees because of the injury. That to me is a sure sign of this is a work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. When in the match on the fly, you're then making. I mean, it's not on the fly. Do you know what I mean? Is my point? You're making a spot out of said injury. That's a giveaway to me that it's a work. So you think this is going to get him out of the match at Revolution? Then.
Yeah, I think now it wouldn't surprise me if he was. I don't want to say off TV at all because, well, it's Cody. But I mean, I don't think I could see him wrestling until the match with Shaq and Cargill and Velvet, which is March. I can't remember the exact day, but obviously it's early March, I think.
I don't know if this has any relevancy. Just quickly to Liam's point, I just saw that the qualifying rounds of that Go Big Show finished and it's now semi-finals. So I don't know if it's live semi-finals, which may be why he's writing himself off so he can do full commitment. That
absolute shout, Jack.
There you go.
Yeah.
This says Baby Bonnet. He reminds me his body type more than anything of Donovan Dijak. I don't know what his name is. I think it's Dijakovic, or he might have been one of the ones that got put in that new Antifa stable.
He's currently called T-Bar in Retribution.
There we go.
Yeah, he's currently called T-Bar. Yeah,
T-Bar. Not a fan of that. So yeah, T-Bone. He reminds me of T-Pose. He is just his body type. His wrestling, not so much. I was fairly impressed by him. He gave me big, kind of generic big man vibes, though. I'd like to see some variation in what he does. He didn't do anything wrong. He also didn't. I mean, Cody has to trust him to. Assuming this is work, and he didn't just legitimately injure Cody on the very slight chance, but he obviously had to have faith in him to let him do the spot that quote unquote injured him. Do you know what I mean? So he seems like a solid worker. Anything, I don't see that spark yet about him. Do you know what I mean? But that'll come, I'm assuming. I have a problem before we come to what Jack's thoughts. I have a problem with the post-match stuff with Lee Johnson. Does anyone else get some serious vibes that there's like some proper nepotism going on with the Nightmare family and members of the Nightmare family?
If I can...
Sorry, go on. No.
I was just going to raise a point. The only thing I had to add was, I don't know whether you two picked up on this, but he thanked everyone apart from QT Marshall.
Who, Lee Johnson?
I noticed this as well because
it's probably made Jack happy as hell.
No, I saw. I don't know if I saw it on Twitter, but I did see that, and someone in the comments said, "Oh, could there be some like future feud with QT and Lee Johnson?" I'm like, well, maybe, but that's not big enough for Dynamite. Like that might be some sort of AEW dark feud at best.
I can't wait to see Lee Johnson versus QT Marshall in the main event of Nothing Said Nobody Ever. He's had a losing streak on Dark, I'm assuming, and then has won a match. It's ironic that Peter Avalon was the guy he pinned to then go up on stage and get to have this big Tony Schiavone interview where he gushes about, look at me, ma, I made it, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, he got this big interview with Tony Schiavone, and it's ironic that the guy he beat is Peter Avalon, because Peter Avalon also had a losing streak. Brandon Cutler also had a losing streak. They never got to go on stage and give a kind of monologue on Dynamite about my losing streak's finally over. And it just does seem to me that people in the Nightmare family get this preferential treatment a little bit. Like, you're sick of QT Marshall, aren't you, Jack?
Well, yeah, and it's even made more sick by the fact that I watch him every week on Sammy Guevara's vlog, and they pin him as this kind of like top guy, basically, like a big figure in AEW, which I know he is in the background, but yeah, no, he's just not for me.
On the screen, they've given him so much exposure as part of, like, you know, his tag team with Dustin, and it feels undeserved a little bit. Do you know
it's a bit annoying as well, that the fact that, okay, if you compare the two scenarios, Young Buck's best mate, Brandon Cutler, Cody's best mate, QT. Cody managed to get QT in a tag team with his brother, and, you know, quite big like push really on Dynamite, whereas Brandon Cutler's probably done it the right way, and as they call him, two contract Cutler, he's kind of, you know, he's humble, and he's not being given that same treatment, which I think is better, because, you know, like, why should he just get a push just because he's mates with someone that's high up, you know?
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of this with the Nightmare family, and I like Cody, but, you know, I do think. And there's stuff with Brandy as well, like with gimmicks that haven't particularly landed in the past that have been put in the spotlight which shouldn't have been. And I don't know, it just feels like the Nightmare family as a whole, you're in the Nightmare family and you get your shot whether you deserve it or not. Not saying Lee Johnson doesn't deserve a shot, because he's clearly talented young guy, but he laid it on a bit thick, in my opinion.
The only thing I have to add on this situation is this isn't just like this week, this Dynamite in general. I've noticed that the way that other groups portray themselves are always together. The Nightmare family must really fucking hate Cody, because the amount of times I've seen Cody get beaten down and no fucking contact to save him at all.
Literally, actually, that's a really good point, Liam.
He's got a whole school of people that should be coming out to save him. It's like,
he should be the most powerful guy in AEW with the amount of backup he has, but no, they all just sit and do fuck all every week while he gets battered by Team Taz.
To be honest, if I was back in school, and someone was decking the shit out of my head teacher, I'd whip my phone out. Do you know what I mean? So, it's not that I didn't like him. Do you know what I mean? So maybe there's an element of that with the Nightmare Factory, because, like, it's a wrestling school now, isn't it, with the Nightmare Factory, Nightmare Family. So, yeah, Jack, I noticed we didn't come to you about the match itself, though. Did you have anything to add about the match, or was this as nothing for you as it was for me?
It was nothing. You know what? Might call it my shocker of the week. I know Liam used his early. This might just be on a match perspective, but, you know, if I break it down part by part, definitely agree with Liam. Or should I say, wrestler by wrestler, Cody definitely is forcing his way out of Revolution, and as I said, I personally think it might be because of the Go Big Show. I don't know if it's like our talent shows over here, like Britain's Got Talent is live, so obviously they need to time off, but I don't know how it works. But yeah, and yeah, so that's that. Then I'll go on to Caesar Bononi, or whatever he's called now. I believe
his name is Caesar Bangbus.
It's like Benedict Cumberbatch, isn't it? You just come up with a different version. That's our thing. But no, I think, you know what? I was about to say I quite liked him, but, you know, do I like him? Really? I think we call Serpentico the B-Tech high flyer. I think Caesar Bononi might just be a B-Tech, like, big guy. You know what I mean?
Lance Archer.
I mean, we'll go with that. And then Peter Avalon, it's not so much his wrestling. I mean, his wrestling was absolutely fine. I love his gimmick, though, later on in the main event. I thought I'd bring it up now as it's relevant. I love his little heart shape kind of stool he lays on with the red sheet and then the pillows. And he just sits there like so. Yeah, I just thought that was quite funny. But yeah, he's average, isn't he? I mean, he's not terrible. I don't hate him like I hate Chaos Project and QT, but, you know, he's fine. And then, yeah, Lee Johnson, as you guys said, he's getting this push because he's Nightmare Family. Is he that good? I mean, maybe, but I think I like what the Nightmare Factory is doing, because it's like it's like football with their academy. Build the academy, bring the players
everyone
in.
else has got one. I mean, literally everyone else has. Every other promotion has their own. New Japan has the dojo, WWE has the Performance Center, and NXT used to be Florida Championship Wrestling and Ohio Valley Wrestling, going even further back in time. They used to use feeder feds, essentially, like Southampton is to Liverpool. And what else they got? And Shikara had their own one, and everyone's Ring of Honor, Mike. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah.
But this is obviously AEW's one. It's a shame. It's obviously
branded to Cody.
Yeah. But it is what it is. I don't hate it. It's a nice way to get new talent in. I just wish the talent didn't get the sort of
media push.
Yeah, like it just seems like 29 losses and then his first win comes on Dynamite. I get it, but like I don't know.
To be honest, that's pretty good cover against dickheads like us telling him he doesn't deserve push to give him 29 losses first, and they can point to that.
Then,
Do you know what I mean? But was it his Dynamite debut, or at least his match debut? Because he's come out on Dynamite before, I'm pretty sure, to like bust up.
I think it might be his Dynamite debut.
I think it's his Dynamite match debut, definitely.
A match debut, yeah. But where was I going with that? Yeah, so that's just annoying. And my final comment on the whole thing, it just cringed me out a bit. It was just cringy. Like you said, we watch so many matches each week with AEW, and no one else does some sort of like. And as you said, when Brandon Cutler beat Peter Avalon, he didn't do anything like that.
Where was the speech when Peter Avalon got his first win?
It's just not needed. Like, I get it. You've worked hard. You got your first win, but I mean, only 50% of that win was yours. I know you did the main effort, but you're a tag team, so it's like, I don't know. It's just, let's move on, because it's just an annoying segment that I don't care for.
If I can raise one more point before we move on.
Yeah.
Another thing, I only just thought of this when Jack was talking about the Nightmare Factory thing. I hope that doesn't mean that majority of new recruits that have come up through Dark and everything else are going to get this guy's partnered with Cody, look at him. I'd like to see more people pair up with Team Taz and more people come up through the Dark Order and things like that, instead of them all being a part of the Nightmare family. I think that would be nice as well.
I agree.
Whether they do that, we'll have to wait and see.
Just to correct Jack, it's pronounced Cesar Bento Box. And I did want to say one more thing, which was, how much does Arn Anderson's son look like him? That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. There was a weird.
I mean, I know kids are going to look like their parents, but that's like taking it too far, isn't it?
Yeah, literally.
He's got no right to look that much like his dad.
But how old is he? Because he looks about 40 already.
I think that's fitting, because I think Arn Anderson has looked about 40 since he was about 19. So
it's weird though, because there was a segment, I think it was just exclusive to YouTube. They called it Coach's Corner, so I don't know if it's a regular thing, but it was an interviewer for Arn Anderson, and I think it was a 3-4 minute interview, and I think the interviewer only managed to get one question in, so it wasn't a very good segment for me, because it was just like, oh yeah, good win for Lee Johnson, how do you feel, like all this, whatever. And then Arn just took the floor, and then the interviewer the next thing she said was like, thanks for your time, Arn. And then that was it. It was like, that was a weird segment. So wouldn't really recommend checking it out, but if you got nothing else to do, go for it.
Next we had a segment between the Young Bucks and the Good Brothers. I liked how they started this by the Good Brothers referring to Private Party as Private Sharty. That was nice.
Yeah, brilliant.
Matt, at one point, Matt Jackson called out. I mean, they before we get onto that, they had their kind of difference of opinion. They seemed to kind of talk it out at the beginning of the segment, which I don't think will last long. Is obviously like a little patch on a deeper problem that's going to resurface. But they're just teasing us. But then Matt calls out Santana and Ortiz, so we're going to have that match based on them eliminating them in the tournament.
It kind of don't know what the word I'm looking for, but last week when we did the Battle Royal tag match, I obviously really wanted Santana and Ortiz to win, because I thought, that'd be a really good, that'd be a match I'd be hyped for. Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz for the title, Revolution, yeah. They ended up obviously losing. We talked about that last week. Jericho and MJF.
Get a fucking title shot out of it.
Yeah. So how come when they lose a Battle Royal, they then gain a title? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. If you're giving a title shot to someone, give it to someone that hasn't just lost a week before a chance to get a title shot.
I suppose it does make sense in wrestling logic, because the logic is the match itself was for a company-sanctioned title shot, whereas as the champions, the Young Bucks can choose to defend their title whenever they want, I guess, is the logic there. It does also, though, seem silly for them to get a title shot before the actual people that won the match based on their actions within said match.
And it then contradicts itself for the whole fact they then, the week before, or 2 weeks before, had to match the... 6-man, the 3 tag teams of Inner Circle, to be the tag team in the Inner Circle. So that's just been completely irrelevant now, because both it was like whoever won that was going to represent the Inner Circle in tag team matches. So Jericho and MJF win, and then Santana Ortiz now have a.
They're actually within the Inner Circle. And what if they bloody won it? Do you know what I mean?
Literally.
But can you imagine if they won the title now and then?
What happens then?
Titles before, do they just go on to defend it? I mean, that's not going to happen. But
it's just a bit stupid. But that being said, looking forward to it. I like both teams, so I'm sure I'll enjoy the match. But it just, on a storyline point of view, didn't make sense. But you know what? I'm just such a mark for AEW. I don't care.
Any thoughts on this segment, Liam?
Yes, this is actually not going into the logic behind the match, because, well, Jack's already spoke my point about that. But I don't know what one it is. I know one of you will be able to tell me. But they've done it on Being the Elite, and they've done it on AEW as well, where one of the Young Bucks was happy to do the Too Sweet in public, and the other one wanted to do it private. And I don't know what the story they're telling us here, or what it's going to lead to, or what. But it's obviously something I've picked up on.
So on this particular bit, Matt, I am assuming this was an excuse then, because I didn't realise this was longer running, so I'm assuming it's something on BTE, because I've really fallen back on BTE. I will catch up. I say it every week, but I will. One of these days. But, yeah, I noticed this week that Matt refused to do the Too Sweet, and he said it was because he feels awkward doing it with Sting around, because Sting was in the Wolfpack, who also did the Too Sweet. But I don't know whether that's legit or whether he's giving a different reason every week and finding reasons not to do it because he's not invested in the thing. Again, it's them giving Matt more personality than Nick, which is something they've done forever. They did it back when they faced Repugni 3K at Wrestle Kingdom, and then Matt sold the kayfabe back injury he got in that match for literally about 3 years afterwards. They did it with, I think Matt was the one that had that kind of emotional spot in the match against the Golden Lovers at Strong Style Evolved, when he forced Kenny to put his arm around his neck and hit him with the One-Winged Angel. Yeah, it was, because I remember Nick making the save. And it was Matt who kind of was less agreeable, less amenable with Kenny and Hangman, and had that. I think he was probably the one that spat in, I want to say, Hangman's face.
He was. It was.
So yeah, they have aside from Merch Freak, which we all love, but is a BTE exclusive. Matt is definitely kind of given the personality guy of the group, which already seems to be one. I mean, there was Jeff Hardy and the Hardy Boys and whatnot, but the thing is, Nick's the high flyer, and it's usually the high flyer who gets that role. But Matt's, I mean, maybe they're, but yeah, they're giving Matt this kind of part of the story as well, so he always seems to get these bits. That takes us on to the first of 2 backstage promos featuring Adam Page and Matt Hardy. We'll probably only really touch on this quite briefly now, because we'll talk about the bulk of it when we get on to the second promo featuring them. This was the one where they were in the hall, and let's make no bones about it, Matt Hardy asks Adam Page out on a date. And Adam Page agrees to it, and then walks down the hall, and there's a bit of an awkward encounter with the Dark Order. So I like that that's still going. And I also like that they got all these guys in to film that one bit. I like how the Dark Order just moves together as a unit like gazelles. Do you know what I mean?
It made me so sad though when John was like, "Oh, hey, Adam." It was just like,
I knew he reminds me of Alan from The Hangover and his obsession with Phil. Hey, Phil.
Oh yeah, no, you said it last week, didn't you? That was such a. Oh, hey, Phil.
But yeah, I will obviously ask Liam about it and you more about it, but we'll come back to that when we get on to the second of these. Pac versus Ryan Nemeth. I'm just going to say it now. Neither of you have the authority to do this. This was my shocker of the week.
No, really?
Jack's face. Yeah, Jack. And I see how much you disagree with this visually. Name me one spot that happened in this match. Go.
Blackout.
Exactly.
It was. To be fair though, it's a squash match that we all sometimes really want from AEW.
But it wasn't. It lasted much longer than those squash matches we quote unquote want from AEW. But nothing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many squash matches you've actually seen, but they usually are proper old school squash matches, less than a minute. This was like what? I don't know. I didn't time it. 6-7 minutes. It felt like 30. I mean, the only good thing I could say about it was that Ryan Nemeth, he kind of, I could tell his moveset and just his movement is very similar to his brother. You could see Dolph Ziggler in him, and you can tell they've probably trained together or trained on the same person at some point. What happened in this match? Nothing. This was a waste of my time.
Which was more of a waste of your time? The last match we talked about or this one?
This one. At least that one furthered a storyline somewhat. Do you know what I mean?
Did it? Really?
Yeah, Cody's potential injury and whether they're going to do something with that. It facilitated something.
I just want to see Pac, so, you know, I enjoy Pac.
I do agree with what they said about, I don't know, it was JR who said he's pound for pound the best wrestler. Probably, or it might have been Tony Schiavone. Said pound for pound the best wrestler in AEW, which, I mean, I agree with that. He is...
I actually love him. He's my top... I'd probably say top 3 at the moment. If I had to pick 3, yeah, he's definitely... I just love watching him each week. I just think... I love his presence. I love the... He's... As we said last week in the... Was it main event beach break? You had Mox, you had Ray Phoenix, you had Pac. Pac is like the perfect hybrid of both, in a way. In my opinion, he's got the high flying, but not as much as Ray, and he's got like the kind of like brawler side and technical side, but not as much as like Mox. If you know what I mean, he's kind of like, and I just like that. He's kind of like the perfect wrestler.
Well, then that's why didn't he do more of that in this match? Like, he's in there with Ryan Nemeth, who's a really athletic guy. Ryan Nemeth, who clearly from one of the spots he did in this match, which is the only other spot I remember, is clearly trying to outsell his brother. Do you know what I mean? His brother's big on big sells, and he's there writhing around on the floor. So just let Pac do something interesting to you. Do you know what I mean? This was just rest holds. There was nothing. It was just like one long rest hold, this match, and then it was over. It was
fair play.
Shit.
Fair
it was
play.
shit. Liam, sorry, I've just completely demolished this before coming in to ask you anything about it. Please don't tell me you really like this match, because I'm going to feel terrible.
I'm going to be honest. I think it was the greatest match of all time. I loved it, and obviously I'm winding you up. The only things I actually have written down here, sorry to break kayfabe, Pat's selling of the DDT and the dropkick I thought was pretty well. And again, I've actually put a squash match, and I love... what's his name? I'll put Primark Ziggler because I couldn't remember what it was called.
I mean, he is a Ziggler, technically.
Yeah.
He doesn't use that surname. He doesn't.
Ryan Nemeth.
Ryan Nemeth.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do love Ryan selling.
Mr. Ziggler.
Yeah, I love Ryan selling, but obviously you've already said that he obviously gets it
I
from
thought
his
he
brother
oversold
somewhere.
a little bit, to be honest. But
Yeah.
again, I think it was
well,
like he's got like a scoreboard going with his brother, I think, and it was, you know. I think Dolph gets it perfectly right, though. Then we had a recap of the wedding. Quite brief. There's not much to say about it other than Penelope is really good at looking pissed off. And I kind of like that they're using this to head towards Miro versus Orange Cassidy, because this is finally something I can get on board with this whole thing. I like that as a match. I like that as a potentially a Revolution match. We know that Orange Cassidy has stolen the show at Revolution before, so in his match with Pac, I just still think it's weird that Miro's using Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian as a vehicle for a singles match with Orange Cassidy. It's still bizarre to me. The quicker he branches out on his own, for me, the better. I don't know. Thoughts on this, Liam?
I mean, to be honest with you, I just feel that obviously I get why Miro and Kip are together. It's like a team and everything, but I do want to see Miro move on from this soon. Maybe when after the feud with Orange Cassidy is done, I want to see him do his own thing and go for titles and everything else. And I feel that with his personality and how comedic he can be, I don't really know whether to say a babyface or wrong would be the best thing for him. But I don't feel his personality has come through as much as what people thought it would when it was first announced he signed with the company.
I just want to pick up on what you said about it being obvious why Miro's with Kip Sabian. Why would you say that is? Because to me, it just seems like they're keeping them together for his best man gimmick, and just they had this name in mind for him, the best man, and then thought the way. But is there something behind the scenes? Are they with Twitch and stuff? Because I don't follow them on Twitch or anything.
Yeah, I say to my knowledge, at least anyway, I'm pretty sure they're both they stream on Twitch quite a fair amount. I'm unsure whether they stream together, but I know when Miro was in WWE under Rusev, and obviously Kip was, I think it might have been pre-AEW as well, I can't really remember. I know they used to interact on each other's streams quite a lot and raid each other and everything else, so they've been close for a while. So
maybe he's really his best man.
Who knows?
I don't know. Who knows? Right. Jack, anything to add about this before we move on?
Just the fact I would like a Miro Orange Cassidy match. I like, but I don't know whether I'd like it as much because at Revolution last year you had Pac, a hard lad, just straight edge like the heel essentially against OC, and he had his comedy sort of gimmick there, which he showed glimmers of being like a really good wrestler. Then we had the Chris Jericho one, which again a heel, but Jericho has a comedy element to him. And I just don't, and then obviously we saw OC a bit more of like a legit wrestler, and I just don't know how I'm going to feel about a match with Miro and OC, whether it's going to be, I don't know how I feel. For me, it kind of feels more of a Dynamite match than a Revolution, but I'm here for it. I like both, and in terms of Miro as a wrestler, I agree he probably should be better solo or with a manager or something, and I wonder what his storyline would have been, because it wasn't too far away from the Jimmy Havoc leaving the company, which I assume Miro would have had talks with AEW before that. So what was his storyline before? Yeah, would he have been solo? What would his storyline have been?
Into this
yeah.
Like...
Or would you have the Death Triangle and then some sort of other triangle with Miro, Kip, and Jimmy Havoc? That would have just been weird. Yeah.
I'm assuming Havoc would have broken off and done a solo thing, which would be nice to see. But moving on, we had Jericho and MJF versus the Acclaimed. Now, obviously, this had a lot of story implications. Started out with MJF approaching the rest of the Inner Circle as they were about to enter, claiming that Sammy Guevara had broken his ribs when he punched him in the gut, and obviously then using that as an excuse throughout the match to let Chris Jericho do the brunt of the work despite being in his 50s. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, can we please stop with the sing-along to Judas every week? It worked well when there was a full set of crowds, but when it's forced amongst jobbers, local indie talent, and I have to
they get so into it in their faces.
I know,
but
yeah.
I'm not sure they are actually into it. Do you know what I mean?
They're not. The headbanging, the dancing, it's just incredibly cringe. And at this point, I'm convinced Jericho probably has it written into his contract that everyone has to do it whenever he walks out to the ring. But it
do you reckon it's just when he walks out into the ring, or he just walks into Starbucks and Sammy, well now MJF, I suppose, is following behind him playing on their phone, and everyone has to do the sing along. The entire city of Jacksonville has been contracted.
Just walks behind him with a big stereo, just playing Judas on loop.
Well, that's what the Acclaim's gimmick is at the moment, isn't it? With the big stereo, which brings on nicely into that.
And speaking of the Acclaimed, what a great segue. They're currently my favourite thing in AEW. And
I love them. Jack's not been a big fan. I'm really curious
Jack,
if Jack's
what the
been
fuck?
converted. Jack, let us know. Converted yet? Yay or no?
I'm getting there.
He's getting there. That's something. Let's give him a little firework of approval. I don't have applause yet, so that's the most positive noise you're going to get out of me. I really like them. I think their rap was a bit flat last week, but this
one of those the rapping. He's Max Caster. I like the rap. I like that they reference the Rosie O'Donnell thing as well.
The other thing to bring in with the Acclaimed is I don't know, I'm going to be honest, I don't know whether they're face or heel, but either way, that's a good thing with this type of gimmick. It works brilliantly because, similar to Elias in WWE, if you're a musical act as a wrestler, you can always shit talk your opponent, whether they're a face or a heel, and people are going to like it. And I think when the crowds are back, hopefully this year, but if not, then obviously next year, I think they'll get over fairly quickly, and you can tell that the gimmick's obviously inspired by early John Cena, but it works and it suits them, to be honest. As for the match in general, if you want my opinion on that, I thought it was a good match for what it was. Like, I thought the Acclaimed and Jericho and MJF suited each other pretty well, and obviously MJF and Y2J go brilliantly as the shithouse heel tag team that they are at the minute. And I think the Acclaimed in ring, I think they've improved every week, but whether that's just down to the opponents, then obviously who knows.
Just to build on what you said there, Liam, about not knowing whether they're faces or heels, I read them as a heel, and I read this as a heel v heel tag match, and I felt like the crowd, or the quote unquote crowd, the, as you say, the jobbers and AEW Dark Talent and stuff didn't really seem to know how to get into this match. Who they were supposed to cheer for and who they weren't, and it was a bit awkward from the crowd for me because of that. But yeah, I would just pick up on one thing I really didn't like about this match, and it was nothing to do with any of the wrestlers in it. It was Aubrey kicking the Jericho and MJF's hands, because Jericho grabbed onto MJF's arm as he had one of the Acclaimed in a submission hold to give him more pull, to give him more leverage and stuff. And then Aubrey came along, noticed it, and kicked their arms quite heftily to break it. I just have to think, would they do that for any other ref, or is this just an Aubrey is a badass, let's give Aubrey a cool badass spot? Do you know what I mean? Because the crowd are really big on Aubrey. Do you know what I mean? The crowd love Aubrey Edwards. It's not necessary to really insert yourself into the match so much that you give a jump kick on somebody's arm to break up an illegal hold. Count. That's what you're there for. You count to 5. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one that kind of had a problem with that. I probably am the only one that had a problem with that. But
no. After you explain, I agree. But I just saw it as what it was, but after you explain, it was a bit, unnecessary. Really. I mean,
if you like it, have your own.
No, I didn't have an opinion on it. For me, it was just a part of the match. For me, it was an all right match. I mean, like I said, the Acclaims were getting a bit more of a fan in me. Each week, I seem to the rapping's still not got me yet. I preferred this week's rap more than I have any of the others, but the match in general, it wasn't the best match. I liked when Jericho tried to do the lion salt and failed, because obviously the fact that he got over saying he did it so perfectly, so he tried doing it again. Typical Jericho trying to show off, and it didn't pay off that time. But yeah, and obviously Judas Effect won the match, but I think if you're all right for me to go with the implications after the match, or do you want me just to hand that over to you?
Fill your boots, mate. Lead us in.
Yeah, so obviously for me, this match was all about what happened after. The match was great, but it was okay. But what happened after was the main steal. So after the events of what happened previously, obviously the Inner Circle are out there with Jericho and MJF celebrating the win, and then I love the fact that Sammy obviously comes out to his own music, because usually when he comes out it's with the Inner Circle, he's there already, so it's nice hearing Sammy's music come out. And I love just how straight it was. It wasn't like they tried to basically, long story short, Sammy's left the Inner Circle, should say that before I talk about, but I love how they didn't try and convince him to stay, or didn't try all that. It was just straight up. Sammy was like, I said in December, if I said in December, if this happened one more time, I'm out. This is it. I'm out, and that was it. And I like that. It wasn't a big, 5-minute thing where there was a lot of chatting. It was like, oh no, like this could. It was just straight up like you've had your chance. This is it. It's him. And what sold it perfectly was MJF's little look at the camera and his little cheeky grin. That his plan's working, whatever he's trying to do.
I missed that. I must have been taking.
Did you miss it?
I missed him
Well, once he dropped the bombshell where he's like, "I'm out. I'm leaving the inner circle." Yeah, everyone was obviously reacting. Jericho quite, rightly upset. He's lost his first tag team partner with the inner circle and one of the founding members.
Yeah, I thought that. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I also will just say, I marked out when Sammy came out.
I did a bit. I was a bit,
hearing his music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was nice hearing his music on its own because normally, like I said, he comes out with the rest of them, so it's usually Judas you hear, so it's nice hearing his music again. But yeah, the main bit I took from it was MJS, little look at the camera, little grin, his plans coming together, and who's going to be next? I reckon Jericho. I reckon Jericho's the next one in MJS plan to try and so he can take control. That's where I'm going with it.
Well, Sammy didn't just say he was leaving the inner circle. As he was leaving the stadium, Alex Marvez.
Yeah, that came a bit after, didn't it? That was, I didn't know whether you wanted me to say that bit yet.
Well, no, I mean it came right after the match, but there was a break. There was I would consider it as part of the same segment.
Yeah, that's fine.
For the very next thing that happened, where he said, I need time away from this place, and the commentators picked up on it. So does that mean he's going to take a few weeks off AEW and then come back to a thunderous reception? We hope. Thoughts on the whole thing, Liam?
To obviously carry on with what Jack was saying, I did notice the MJF sort of smile towards the camera, and two things I can see that them coming from this. One, if they bring Sammy back short term, it wouldn't shock me to see a match Sammy versus MJF at Revolution. But if we're going a bit long term, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see when the eventual time does happen and Jericho does get kicked out of the inner circle by MJF and friends, whether they're going to all be beating down Jericho and then Sammy Guevara makes a save after having a month or two off.
I'd actually quite like to see, I know it's a bit random, but now we're talking about them beating down people together and, MJF potentially becoming a bigger figure, maybe even the leader of the inner circle. I'd quite like to see Jake Hager and Wardlow as a tag team now they've put their differences aside.
Yeah.
Because obviously Sammy Hager's potentially not going to be a thing unless Hager follows him out the door anymore. So I'd quite like to see a big guy tag team of them two. Do you know what I mean? I feel that will keep him busy. Yeah, no, good stuff. This I talked earlier about there's 3 big storylines in AEW, which I'm really into at the moment. One of them is this. One of them is the obvious, which we'll obviously come to later. And the next perfect segue is the next one. This part 2 of Matt Hardy and Adam Page's date. We're on the date. I keep saying date. I mean, I assume for people who haven't seen it, it's not actually a date, but it read that way. It was very sexual. He's laughing. Matt Hardy's laughing at all his jokes. He's buying him drinks. Of course, this turns out to be because he's trying to get him drunk so he can sign a contract, which is probably obviously an absurd contract like Private Party's on, although Private Party have come to accept it, and they seem to be one round to Matt's side now. So I believe Matt Hardy probably owns Adam Page in a way, or represents him in some fashion now. One problem I have with this is Matt Hardy brings along the camera, breaks the fourth wall to the camera and says, "This is why I wanted a camera." This comes back to a similar thing to what I was talking about Sammy earlier, bringing the camera along. But does that actually help him that he's brought a camera along to document him getting a man drunk and then signing a contract? Like, is that legally binding if Adam Page isn't in his a lucid state of mind? And Matt Hardy's brought the camera as if it would help him. Like, surely it would actually help him more to not have the camera there and get the signature, because then he can say he's got the signature and Adam Page can't say, "Oh yeah, well I was drunk." But now it's like, okay, you could probably take this to court with him, like getting him inebriated and getting him to sign a contract when he was blackout drunk. I'm pretty sure like Adam Page has a contention purely because Matt Hardy has filmed it, not because it hasn't helped him in any way, like in the real world. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what you guys think about this.
going on to what you said, obviously, if he's drunk and he's been coerced into signing a deal and he's not 100% sober, then obviously he's just going to get shafted. But I thought that Hangman switching the contract was clever. And I do wonder where it's going. I mean, again, me trying to fantasy book Revolution at this point, it wouldn't shock me to see a match with Matt Hardy versus Hangman Page for Revolution, maybe. But, I mean, to be fair, with the contract that Hangman swapped it with, because I do feel Revolution could be a bit too soon, I'm wondering if maybe it's going to be something like a quote-unquote restraining order where Matt has to stay away from Hangman because obviously Matt's been bothering him for 3 weeks now? And Hangman's entire thing, and it's like the reason he didn't join the Dark Order was he wants to be on his own, he wants to be left alone, he doesn't really want to be with anyone whatsoever. So, and the fact that Matt's been with him.
I do think Matt Hardy's going to be kind of forcing him, in a sense, to compete, that, taking a big cut of his money because he's big money Matt, blah, blah, blah. But then potentially the Dark Order will be the ones who rescue Hangman, in a sense, and then eventually we might get that payoff of him joining the Dark Order, because people want him to join the Dark Order, and AEW knows this, and they got to give the people what they want. But, maybe not in the way everyone expects it to, because it's not as gratifying if he had joined the Dark Order at that time when he got that first offer. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it will feel a lot better if there's a story there, if there's emotion there, do you know what I mean? Rather more so than what we've already got. And if they go through this together and then he finally joins, it's going to feel like a really good moment. As I say, I really like, we rag on the show a lot, which is, believe it or not, we really, really like AEW compared to other wrestling promotions. But it's
But that's why we're so critical. Because we love
it. Because we love the product, exactly. And because this is what we do, we're dissecting our show on the podcast. Anything to add to this, Jack?
Not too much for me. Just I love kind of the idea you suggested there of having a little, Hangman and Matt Hardy thing, and Dark Order saving that for me would be really exciting. And then obviously we all know eventually we'll have a Kenny Hangman rematch, and I just love the idea of Dark Order being there with him if he then won it off Kenny and having a big,
getting him on their shoulders.
Yeah, and I think that'd be sick. So
purple and black confetti.
Yeah, exactly. So really exciting. And as you said, this is one of the big storylines that I really love watching each week.
Are there lawyers on Fiverr, do you reckon? Like a by the hour thing. I legit will, if there are some on there, I'm legit, before the next podcast, going to hire a lawyer, record a brief voice call with them where I show them this footage and ask them if that contract, whatever's on it, would be legally binding. I'd brief them on it first.
I'd be down for that. Yeah, do it.
I'm going to do that. That takes us on to... We had an interview with Sting. No, we didn't. We almost had an interview with Sting. Liam, you're not forced to talk about this every week. Well, no one's forced to talk about this. I mean, it's starting to feel like there's a gun to my head, though. To be honest,
we
don't
forced.
talk about this every week, so
he's just forced to listen about it each week. Why
don't you do it? Just talk about.
Fine, I'll get this over with. I just want to start with this whole Team Taz, Darby and Sting crap. It's been the same thing on AEW for a month now. And if they're going to have someone as a big name as Sting, you don't have him for a time filler for Team Taz and Darby Allin and everything else.
What time is he filling? He didn't say any words.
I mean, in general, over
his
the last
entrance is the time filler. His entrance takes can anyone go back and he didn't say anything, so we can't even go by on what he said. But can we measure how long he was out there compared to how long his entrance is? Sorry, carry on.
Like I said, the other thing which I know we're all going to mention was the famous line, Sting is in hot pursuit, as he then walked very, very, very slowly back down the tunnel. And the other thing
Sting,
as well...
Hot pursuit.
The other thing... I've noticed that twice in 2 weeks they've done a kidnapping angle with Marco Stunt and FTR the week previous. The other thing I've noticed...
a bit, because I have an issue with that.
Of course. The only last thing I don't like about this segment was the fact that we didn't hear anything about it the rest of the night. So as far as we're concerned, it's going to take Sting doesn't give that much of a fuck, and it's going to take him a week to actually deal with it. It would have been nice to at least see something that indicates he's going in that direction. For all we know, he's fucked off home.
I mean, we know they have we know they have a warehouse at their disposal for Darby Allin smashing Windows purposes to look like a hard ass, and then Sting copying it.
The damn hoodlums.
Yeah, the hoodlums. We're hoodlums. I'm not a hoodlum. Wait, yes, I am a hoodlum. Sorry, that promo when he just came upon the realization he was a hoodlum halfway through was just like, why'd you keep saying this word? They have a warehouse. They could have had like a little kind of horror style shoot where Sting is in there and you got Taz like shouting out, but Sting doesn't know where he is in the dark and he's going around with his baseball bat looking for him. And like, they could have done so much. They could be doing things with this. They could be doing things with. They got Sting. They could be doing like gothic cinematic segments with him, but they're fucking not. Like, it's the definition of madness. It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I don't know who said that. Fucking Shakespeare or Stephen Hawking or one of them cunts. I mean, I did kind of enjoy the spot, to be honest, with Darby getting dragged by the car. That was pretty decent. It was the only good thing about it, the only redeeming part of this whole segment. That it was another badass spot from Darby. I think potentially you shouldn't waste it on promos about what a hard ass he is and backstage segments, and maybe just have some crazy matches where he does shit like this. But no, that was pretty fun. The only good thing I can say about that segment, though, the only reason it doesn't get my Screamer of the Week, my Shocker of the Week, which I've given to Pac versus B-Tech Dolph Ziggler. We next had Kenny Omega interview on the golf course. Why is Mark?
Can I just say I'm so glad you didn't ask my opinion on that, Darby, because I was just going to refuse to say anything anyway. So.
Well, no, I think we'll still come to you first for your opinion on this. What's your opinion on this Kenny Omega golf? Fuck my life. Golf segment. He's playing golf. He has an interview. Here you go.
I never took Kenny for a golfer. That's why I got away with it. Who would have thought Kenny Omega a golfer, eh?
Heel Kenny as a golfer.
I mean, I imagine just because he's heel doesn't mean he changes his interest in sport. I imagine he was a golfer anyway.
Exactly what happens. Once you get rich and evil, you have to play golf.
You have to play golf. Now it was an alright spot. I love that he even cheats on the golf course. I think Tony Schiavone brought that up when he hit that shot, didn't he? And then Callis puts it in for him.
In the background, slipping it in goal.
That was
another eagle.
and then another highlight. Always Alex Marvez. Actually, I'm trying to remember if they said it earlier in the show. Actually, I think it was. Was it Sting? Or was it? Trying to think who it was earlier, but someone did something.
Use your words, Jack.
No, someone said, I'm just going to say it was Tony, saying, can we get Alex Marvez on this? Because it was chasing someone. And it was like, that's his thing now. I think it was Sammy. It was the Sammy Guevara walking up.
And he did get on, didn't he?
And they were like, can we get Alex Marvez on this? Because he's just the guy that chases everyone now. But yeah, I just love Alex Marvez going, can I catch a ride? And they just laugh and shrug him off.
I've got this. How did he get there?
Yeah, literally.
If he needs them to give him a ride back, how did he get to the golf course?
How did he get there?
Doesn't have a ride.
Literally, yeah.
I don't really have anything else to say about this other than what Jack said already, to be honest. I thought we fit in the background as... for what it was, yeah, but I didn't really know why it needs to take place on a golf course, but the comedy bit behind it of having Don Callis obviously put the ball in the hole, giggity, that was absolutely brilliant, and that did actually get a chuckle out of me, but the fact that Marvez is always going to random places to find Kenny and interview him. Is that going to go anywhere? Because obviously there's been the golf course. He's went to Kenny's house.
Marvez was originally... We got put in a dungeon, didn't you, at Kenny's house? We referenced it in the name of our first show that wasn't like a special. Yeah. Our first name show was Take Marvez to Dungeon, because that's what he said to Michael Nakazawa. I feel like they may have slipped a George W. Bush reference in here, because he said, now watch this shot or whatever. And of course, George W. Bush... He was being, I don't know, probably the older people amongst us would know this. He was being interviewed about
9/11, a very serious topic, all them years ago, 2001 or whatever. But he's on a golf course and he says, "Now watch this drive." Like after talking about something so serious, and hits a shot. And I know it was intentional, but I figure maybe they might have slipped something like that in there as well towards the beginning that some people might have missed. Funny segment. I like these segments. I liked it in his house. I liked it on the golf course. I like this heel Kenny. Is all the greats can kind of reinvent themselves. Do you know what I mean? And it seems to be furthering that. Now that takes us on to Layla Hirsch versus Thunder Rosa. No, I like my women's matches, but why don't we get your opinion first, Liam?
I thought this was a very good match for what it was. Great opener to the tournament. I thought Layla Hirsch...
Isn't it, for what it was?
It can be, yeah. Fuck it. Every time I'm on here, you can have a for what it was counter. If it's over 10, you get to give out a prize or something. Anyway, I thought that Hirsch got a good amount of offense in. Like the match was very good for, at least for what it was again, for fuck's sake. And as for the whole tournament...
We've all got our own catchphrases. I say, "Do you know what I mean?" all the time. And when I listen to the podcast back, I'm like, who is that prick? And why does he keep saying that?
I'm sure Jack thinks that when he listens to you talk as well. As for the entire tournament, I personally think that Britt Baker's going to win it.
Good shout.
That's all I have to say about this, to be honest. Good match there, but obviously the right person won, so...
Yeah. The result was kind of obvious, but I'm a mark for these women's matches recently. This year, they've just flipped the switch on women's wrestling. I think it's intentional. I think because it was so bad last year, which we complained a lot about at the beginning of the podcast, they've just made it their mission to fix it.
Yeah, no, it was a good match. I really liked it. I noticed a bit of crowd participation I actually was a fan of. Thunder Rosa, I mean, obviously it's Austin Gunn, but singing the Thunderstruck by AC/DC for Thunder Rosa. I quite like that. I don't know about you.
That's what he was doing.
Yeah, Thunder, da 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 da. Yeah, I like that. But in terms of the match in general, yeah, never disappointed with Thunder Rosa or Layla Hirsch. We knew the result was going to be, I think, on the US side of the bracket, the finals probably going to be Britt Baker Thunder Rosa for the rematch. I'm not sure whether Britt will win that or what, but I mean, Liam sees the thing, so I think we're on similar pages that she'll get far, and it will be them two in the US bracket.
Going to the final because she's talking about all the storylines she's got consolidating. She'll have Serena Deeb in the next round. If Serena Deeb wins, then she'll overcome Serena Deeb. Then in the round after that, she'll have, on the final of the US bracket, she'll have Britt Baker, and she'll overcome that because she took the first loss, and then she'll be in the final, and then she's probably going to win it, to be honest. She's contracted AEW star now. I think she's the one that I think she'll win the tournament. I think she'll win the title off Hikaru.
I'd love that. I've been a big fan since she came into AEW, to be fair. But in terms of Matt, I don't often, but I really enjoyed the Matt wrestling in this match. I thought it was really exciting to watch, actually, and the match in general.
Did you see when? For the whole match. Sorry to cut you off. But for the whole match, Layla Hirsch was trying to show off her high flying skills, which in some parts I thought were average. Her crossbody was pretty average. Her tope was pretty average. It looked a little bit janky. Her moonsault was quality, and she hit it twice. She went for it twice. I'm not sure either time it actually hit. I think it got reversed both times. However, it just seems to me that good technical wrestlers always seem to have good moonsaults. That's the one they do great. Kurt Angle had a fantastic moonsault. So I think maybe it's something to do with the angles, or like it's similar to doing a German suplex or something like that. But my only flaw with her was that she was trying to do the stuff, and she's a very short girl. And when she was trying to get up the ropes, she walked up the ropes rather than kind of sprightly jumping up the ropes that you usually see from a high flyer. Towards the end there, when she went for the second moonsault. What I will say though is, because this kind of works into this, she hit a Hurricane Rana early on, which was really nice, and which, you know, is debatable. That could be considered a high flying move. It's a quick move, definitely. And then she did this thing where she kind of did a roll through arm breaker, where she kicked over Rosa's head and then rolled into this. It was really fluid stuff. Like you say, it was great technical wrestling, and they're both such stars. I knew this was going to be a blinder.
It was, and it was a great one to have, you know, the opening match to advertise this sort of tournament, because I mean, you got, as I heard someone say the other day, you got to assume what you're watching, there's going to be someone out there that this is the first time they're watching it. So this is a brand new women's tournament, and that's just a great match to have as the starter. And it's not good at this point. I mean, Monday, all the Japanese women's matches that's all kicking off Monday. Well, all of them are out Monday. So it's definitely going to come to a good start. And I don't think it's got any sort of like signs of slowing down. I think AEW Women's Division 2021 is the year, and it's really good to see.
What we'll also say is one thing I love to see is when action doesn't particularly slow down, or when it does slow down, but they make it exciting during the break. And that's what I got from this match. And this, again, playing into what you said about some really good and interesting groundwork in this match. They had Layla kind of getting out with a really nice bridge of a hold, and then they were still kind of mat wrestling linked up, and Rosa started slamming her head into the mat like 3 or 4 times because of the position they were in. It was just really good stuff and really engaging stuff in a time when not everyone's watching, do you know what I mean? So that's something I really like to see. Not my best match of the night. I rated the first match of the night better, and I rated the last match of the night even better, which we'll get on to in just a second. But any final thoughts from anyone about this match? I think I said it.
Keep it up.
I'm the fan of
I have nothing about the match. The only thing I have to say is that I fucking love a tournament. So the more tournaments I get to see in AEW and in wrestling in general, the better.
Well said. Well said. Here. That takes us into a Jungle Boy promo. There wasn't really much to this. The real big takeaway was that Marco Stunt is okay and has been released. Why? Why have they released Marco Stunt?
I agree.
They had something there. Like, a kidnapping angle. Like they should be in jail for attempted kidnapping anyway. Do you know what I mean? So this is what I mean. It's like they're treating it like serious real world stuff when it suits them and not when it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, surely FTR should have been arrested for kidnapping Marco Stunt, whether they wanted to, filed a complaint with AEW or not. Like, it just...
Well, what would have been good with that whole kidnapping storyline is, obviously, for what they did after their match, Jungle Boy and Dax Harwood's match, which got them suspended for the week, why didn't they have some sort of, obviously FTR want to climb back up the rankings and get the titles back, why don't they have, a little bit going, even if it's for, a couple of weeks, that they constantly can't get a match because they keep on doing stuff to get them suspended for the next week, and then retaliation.
I kind of get that's what was going on, though, that they're trying to get suspended. I feel like that's how they were spinning it, but this time Jurassic Express have said not to suspend them for it. Funny, whereas before they just cut some rubber homes off a guy. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. Why though? Are they scared of? Am I supposed to buy the FTR, who these hard asses are scared of facing Jurassic Express? I mean, they've never really struck me as that kind of heel before. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. I just figured it was going somewhere. They've kidnapped a guy. Do you know what I mean? That's a big thing to do. Is just a quick aside throwaway gag for one Dynamite. Do you know what I mean? I was hoping for more about it. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Liam. As someone who's not discussing it every week, what's your take on this?
I'm going to be honest, don't really have much. I haven't really written anything down about it. But from what I know about the segment and everything, I get they're probably doing it to prolong the feud, which, whether that's going to end
prolong
in...
the feud, do something interesting with...
Thank you, yeah, exactly.
...that they started,
I don't know how many it's be after Revolution, but I suppose if they're building to that, I'm gathering they're going to go Jurassic Express versus FDR, but obviously I think we've seen that previous times on Dynamite on quite a few occasions now. But that may not be true. I can't remember, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure I've already seen that match as in a 2-on-2.
They could have had a custody of Marco Stunt match. Jack might not actually get that reference. They had Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero had a custody of Dominic match once, way back in the day. Rey Mysterio's son, who is now a wrestler, and he was in the Royal Rumble, as you'll recall, had a match of who gets custody over him because Eddie Guerrero was claiming to be his real dad. I'm young.
No way.
Another good thing about that match was Vicky Guerrero ran out, but she was late. And you can visibly hear Eddie Guerrero screaming, "Where the fuck was Vicky? Where the fuck was Vicky?"
He's going absolutely nuts. Well, all good things must come to an end, including this episode of WNK, but not before we talk about the main event. We've still got that to go. This was good stuff, I think, is an understatement. I'm going to bestow the honour of talking about this first to my brother Jack.
Yeah, that's very kind. I was very excited to talk about this one. This was my favourite main event on Dynamite since the street fight. This was insane. There was not one bit of this match I didn't enjoy. There were so many spots which were just awesome. Personal highlights when they went into the kitchen and got the potatoes out. And my favourite call on commentary was when, Tony Schiavone was like, he potatoed him.
No, I think it was JR.
Was it JR?
No, you might be right. Because first Lance Archer came in with the sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
Just yeeted them. And then John Moxley picked up the potato. I think it was Tony Schiavone. I think you're right. He's like, he potatoed him.
Which I thought was hilarious. But I'll go for a quick negative before I talk about some more stuff I loved about it. It calls for the way we treat being the elite. There are going to be people that watch AEW who've never watched New Japan in their life, and they've never heard of Kenta. There has not been enough kind of context. Like, give us a little 2-3 minute fact file, even on this episode of AEW, just a bit of background. Like, who is Kenta? Like, he fights in New Japan. Why is this feud happening? Like, and I do like the twist now that, you know, Mox lost the world title. That, you know, it was a shame, but it's gone to Kenny now. He had that kind of thing. Now this feud's brought back up. I kind of want to see him keep coming out with the US title because, as Liam said earlier, it's a beautiful title and it looks really good on him. But that's my only negative. I would have liked, you know, you can't assume everyone knows who Kenta is in New Japan, what New Japan is. This is going to be some people first ever watching and or just loyal to AEW. So yeah, that's my only negative. Other parts though I loved. One of my favourite spots was Kenny Omega setting Moxley up for "You Can Escape," and then jumps onto the top, and then with the trash can he's put onto the post.
I feel like I've seen that spot before. I'm not sure where. I'm pretty sure it was also with a trash can. I don't think it was with a chair. I'd just like to run it back quick for kind of listening along and kind of talk about the beginning of the match.
Yeah, I'm jumping all over the place, sorry.
It's all right. Kenta comes out and we see the kind of his modified Bullet Club logo, which was wild to me, seeing a Bullet Club logo on AEW, despite the fact that is kind of how AEW started, with All In and a big, massive Bullet Club thing on the Tron. Do you know what I mean? It was a Bullet Club event, but it still, to me, was weird after all this time, seeing the Bullet Club link coming back to them. All four men in this match, former or current New Japan talent, and all four of them either have had the US title or are about to challenge the US title in the case of Kenta. So I thought that was really cool. It was. If this felt like Lance Archer's watershed match to me, he came into this and he finally felt like one of the top guys in this match. You see him hanging with the two established top guys in Kenny and Mox, and this guy who's got all the hype around him in Kenta. This to me felt like Lance Archer had entering. Even though he was there to eat the pin, he definitely just felt legit. You know,
he was a highlight for me. He was. Yeah. I think out of the whole match, he was my favourite, and it was. And I like how when the ends of the match don't, you know, put down the rest of it. It took 4 people to pin Archer, so he's still got some, you know, big kind of. It would have been a shame, obviously, like Kenny or Kenta pinned him, and then he's just like, okay, Liam, it's not school. Liam's got his hand up, so we'll pass over to Liam because he's itching to talk.
If I can quickly raise a point, I don't know, I'm gathering you to notice this as well, but I noticed that all 4 of the wrestlers involved in the main event were all like either previous or current New Japan.
Tom
wrestlers.
said that.
I don't know if you just weren't listening to me just then.
Leah, when you're a guest on a podcast, it's courtesy to listen to what's being said.
I mean, I was listening, I must have missed that bit, but I have been listening to you, Tom, I promise. Anyway, yeah,
Tom looks broken. Tom looks like a broken man.
Tom, look, I love you.
How do we expect people who have to search for this podcast to listen to the whole podcast if the person who is a guest on the show is not listening to the podcast?
I was listening, I must have missed you say it.
Oh, that's why I loved
plenty
it.
of time on it, Liam.
Oh,
I know, calm the fuck down. Okay?
amazing.
It's
amazing.
all fine.
That's staying in.
Okay, fuck it, it's staying in. We're live, pal. But yeah, to carry on, I thought the match itself was brilliant. And sorry, Tom, I love you. And yeah, the potato spot was cool. The only downside I
Yeah,
had
I said that, Liam.
I know, Rob.
That's the name of the episode. I just love the way Liam just said that. I don't know why. Yeah, the potato spot was cool. It's just I'd never heard that. I never thought I'd hear those words together. So I might make that.
This is the only downside I have to the match, which this isn't a bad thing, but the table didn't break completely in the Kenta jumping off the stage onto Moxley's spot.
No, you reminded me, Liam.
Was.
I really want to say this.
Fuck me, you didn't actually say it. Wow, brilliant.
No, you reminded me. When I was watching the episode, I was like, I need to mention this. So, I've worked in many a kitchen, so has Tom, and I don't know Liam's background in kitchens.
I can barely make a pot noodle. I haven't.
I think you guys are talking about different spots, but okay, carry on.
No, we'll talk about
Oh, fuck me.
Well, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it anyway now because it's embarrassing.
Okay, cool.
So, but the spot I'm talking about is in the kitchen where Mox and Kenta. Oh, okay, we're different. You say?
Yeah,
no, different. He's different.
Well, I can edit it and chop it around. It makes sense.
Don't. I want everyone else to look as much of a dickhead as I look in this one.
But no, when Mox and Kenta were fighting on the what do you call them? Like the carts, whatever. The buffet tables. That's what they called them, I think, on the commentary desk. Them things have stops to stop them wheeling. And I don't know who was setting up this match if they knew they were going to go into the kitchen and do that spot. Why didn't you put the brakes on the table? Because you had poor, I don't know what the rest called in this one. Paul Turner? Is it Paul Turner?
It's pronounced Caesar Panini.
But bless him, he's there whilst trying to obviously ref, holding the tables together to try and make sure, because at one point they were separated, and if the spot that was about to happened, that could have really hurt someone. So he's trying to put the tables together. That is just so. Just put the brakes on next time. But sorry, Liam, talk about your lovely table spot, which I.
Can we not just be jumping all over the place? like Paul Turner, I have lost control of the discussion of this match. Let's go beat by beat. We've covered Kenny getting the trash can out. We liked Kenny getting the trash can out, yeah, and hitting the moonsault with it. Then they sent it into the crowd, and Kenta grabbed Peter Avalon, which I loved because it just added to the chaos of it. And poor Peter Avalon eats a GTS. Any thoughts on his involvement in it? I like when they add people like that in. It just adds to the chaos. Like when Eddie Kingston the other week attacked Billy Gunn during the lumberjack match. It's like, fuck you too. Do you know what I mean?
The one thing I have to say about this is the fact that obviously, this may not be true, but I think Peter Avalon is the first person to take a GTS during a match in AEW history. And
you can never take that away from him.
Exactly. And the other thing was this bed thing that he was lay on, the heart-shaped thing. If a wrestler went through it, he couldn't have had a mattress on it. So that must have been really fucking uncomfortable if he was actually lay on that for any prolonged period of time. It would have been like lying on a floor.
I think I saw some sort of air mattress thing under it, like a really thin one, but I thought I saw something under it, so maybe that was there just. I don't know if it's there all the time when Peter Avalon's on it, but maybe it was there just to, make it not as uncomfortable.
And the last thing to bring up, surely lying on anything shaped in a heart would be really impractical and really uncomfortable. Unless you sleep diagonally.
But it's pretty Peter Avalon, he can do what he wants.
Plus, I mean, heart-shaped beds do exist. I'm sorry you've never had it.
And they're a fucking waste of time. Fuck heart-shaped beds.
Heart-shaped tubs too, you'll be shocked to hear.
Heart-shaped what?
Hot tubs. Heart-shaped hot tubs. They're a thing.
Oh, you're on about that thing that's basically a bath with your family.
Do you get what's going on with your family?
I'm losing control of this podcast. I'm not even in charge.
He's from Birmingham, Tom. What do you imagine happens?
I have pigeon and chips for lunch most days. What the fuck do you mean? Right, so I'd
give our American listeners a disclaimer, actually. Jack mentioned about you being from Birmingham. That is just the way they talk. Liam doesn't have a head injury of any sort, for those who are concerned.
This is incredible.
Right, so, okay, let me put this into perspective for you. Fuck the wrestling. Right, hot tubs, right? If you... No, I'm not done. We are fucking carrying this on. I am not done.
Please tell me more about hot tubs. And how many you test driven with your family, Liam.
Back to my point. I'm not saying I have because I live in Birmingham. Do you think I've ever
I'm
owned
not
a hot tub?
saying I have. I'm not saying I haven't. But for the record, Your Honour, I'm not saying I have either.
What is going on?
If I can get back on track, which is way off track to begin with. If you're in a hot tub with, let's say you're in a hot tub with... I'm not fucking done, okay?
Okay, I want to listen. Okay,
yeah, you
go
do,
on.
exactly. If you're in a hot tub with, like, let's say you're in a hot tub with a family member, right? If the bubbles go on, apparently it's normal. As soon as the bubble goes off, you're in a fucking bath. Hot tubs are fucking useless unless you like to bath with your fucking family. And I don't, for the record, Your Honour. Glad I got that out of my system. Get back onto the wrestling.
Georgina's looking at me like, what the fuck?
Hi, Georgina.
Every time he said, let's get back on track, I thought he was going to get back to the wrestling, and then he's like, let's get back on track. So, hot tubs with your family. And then
Is this saying in the
ended as
podcast?
badly as I expected it to. Oh,
Well, you got what you expected with me.
that was surreal. So, recovered from that. Barely. We have half a match to still talk about. So then we had the nice spot in the kitchen with Kenta and John Moxley on the metal tables, which Jack mentioned about them should have been secured. And then they brought it back out again, and we had that now, well, probably go down in history, this table spot, won't it? With Lance Archer gets Kenta up for the blackout and goes to put him through the table. The monitors were still up, by the way, and they've got proper, like, computer monitors in AEW. They've not got, like, the...
Yeah, I think that's why they teased it.
Yeah, the boxes from, like, the mid-90s that for some reason WWE is still using for, like, nostalgia purposes. They've got proper computer monitors up in AEW, and I was like, he's not going to take that, is he? And then, obviously, he didn't. But the unexpected thing was the drop and the run and the just, like... I loved that because throughout this entire match, they had split into two camps. They had Moxley and Kenta laser focused on each other, and Kenny and Archer by default were the latter two. But I think this is going to evolve into some sort of feud based on, you know, how brutal they were with each other. So maybe Mox can get put on the back burner a bit while they have a match with... Well, Kenny has a match with Archer. Thoughts on this spot in particular, because I know you mentioned something about it, Liam, and also, yeah, what I've just said there about the potential direction of a story and feuds.
Yeah, the spot in question, good spot. Like I said, I liked everything about it, but it just would have been perfect if the table actually broke, because obviously I don't know whether it's a connection like from Kenta's side or whether it was just the way it was hit, but they both just fell off the table and the table fell. And I'm going to go back to something that happened earlier in the match, which I'm gathering you two picked up on. I was watching it live, and I don't know whether this was edited out or whatever, but mid-match, they basically had a recap of the start of the match.
I had that written down before this bit. I realised I'd gone past it and I was going to come back to it at the end. But this is actually... I rated this 4.75 out of 5 on the Meltzer scale, shall we say. It probably would have got a 5 from me if it wasn't for this weird... I mean, is it not filmed? I don't know, because I know some of them have been pre-taped and some of them are live. I
don't think it was live.
This one was pre-taped because I saw no crowd.
Yeah, because not only that, but it sounded like it was recorded in post from an audio perspective. Do you know what I mean? So that was quite weird. I guess while they were in an area where, but they obviously filmed the match in 2 parts, I guess. But yeah, could continue. Sorry, I picked up on that as well. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm going to say that was a bit weird. There seemed like something I'd get from Kevin Dunn and the rest of WWE, to be honest. So I was quite surprised to see AEW do something like that for, you know, all the amount of times they've tried to be different and everything else. But good match, very good match. It was constantly entertaining, bar that spot that I've just mentioned with going back to the start of the match. And it was one of them where you feel like you can't take your eyes off the screen in case you miss something. This isn't a get the down gripe, pardon me, this is just me being a bit wanting too much. But with Tony Khan saying on the Impact advert on Tuesday, maybe we'll have someone show up this week. Maybe we'll do it every week. I was kind of expecting someone else to come out at the end, whether that be another member of the New Japan roster that's based in America, like Gorillas of Destiny, or maybe Jay White or something like that, because I think he lives in Florida. I would have liked, obviously I would have loved that to happen, but I was somewhat expecting it from Tony Khan's comments, so I was a bit deflated when no one did. But overall, it was still a brilliant match and a pretty good show in general for the amount of stuff that was on there.
Well, that's a pretty good segue into what actually did happen, which was the Good Brothers came out towards the end. I was half expecting when they were lining, was it Mox or Archer? I can't remember who it was. They were lining them up for something pretty brutal. Oh no, it was Jake the Snake. It was Jake the Snake. They were lining him up for a brutal move. I was honestly expecting the Young Bucks to make the save on that, like for a brief moment. But I love when they came out. It just added to the storytelling, because the one thing this match was missing with Kenta's kind of arrival and, like Jack said, unfamiliarity with the AEW universe. Of course, like there's been something building between him and Mox through promos and stuff like that, and through Kenta showing up on New Japan Strong. There's not really been any established story between them on AEW specifically, and there's no real established rivalry really between Kenny Omega and Lance Archer, or indeed Lance Archer and Kenta, whatever. So it's it could have lacked story, but then when the Good Brothers came out, I felt that, do you know what I mean? I felt stories being told, and with Jake the Snake and stuff like that. I will notice they very seriously said they couldn't give Jake the Snake a live mic at some point, when one of them said invite him on commentary, and the other was like, no, don't do that. It almost sounded legit from them to not bring him on commentary. But going beat for beat again, Archer hits a lovely lion salt towards the end of the match, and one thing I absolutely loved was when he gets Kyle Anderson up for the choke slam and he reverses it into the gun stun. Beautiful stuff. Any particular highlights for you towards the end or about the finish, Jack?
For me, as I mentioned last time I spoke, just the finish. It was a proper heel finish, wasn't it? I thought I would hate it, because I'm a man who likes my legit wrestling. I like legit finishes, but with the Kenny story, it made sense. And as I said, with the whole Lance Archer stuff, it gives him, still some legitimacy, a big figure in AEW. Particular spots that I liked. I liked that he tried to do the blackout on Kenny. I thought that was, and obviously was unsuccessful. Some reason, part of me thought he was going to hit it and then Kenny was going to kick out. I don't know why, but I thought that was cool. Trying to think what other ones there were. Yeah, the fact he very nearly went to hit Jake the Snake, I thought that just sort of cements. Also, Patrick mentioned it before, the whole heel side, face side coming out the tunnels. Kenny's on the heel side now. I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
Of course, I mean,
he is. I don't know how long he has been, but I assume it's been for a while. But it just clocked.
Just while you're talking about Kenny Omega's entrance, I loved how he specifically was going on about statistics related to him and the IWGP US title.
Yeah, that's what he does really well. Each entrance, he changes what they say to fit whatever it is, and that's really cool. And again, the North Carolina, I love that stuff.
Was it this time something about him eating wings in North Carolina?
Yeah, it was something about that, wasn't it? Yeah. But no, in general, match of the night for me, it was always going to be. I just thought, and as I said when we first started talking about this match, my favourite main event in Dynamite since the street fight for me. I would have to agree, because I've given it my highest rating. Like I said, a 4.75. It's the highest I can get without it being perfect. So match of the year for me so far. Thoughts in regards to that, about how this measures up to other recent matches?
Personally, I don't think I would have rated it that high, but it was still a very, very, very good match for the talent involved. But I feel that, if you had them four and you gave them more time on pay-per-view, I feel you would have had a lot more. Or if it was just a pure in-ring match, I do think it would have been better, because I feel it was a bit, I don't want to say choppy in parts, but I think the fact that it was a street fight kind of took away from the potential of what the match could have actually been.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I am usually hesitant to give. And I was watching this all the way through, and I'm like, I'm going to give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 4.25. I'm going to, watch it all the way through, because I was trying to hold back because of the very fact it was a street fight. Do you know what I mean? It's not a conventional match. It doesn't have those kind of false finishes, good false finishes, not cheap false finishes that we see in other in really long kind of pay-per-view matches. I'm trying to reserve myself, and that's why, honestly, the cutaway wasn't what lost it, quarter of a point for me. It's the fact that we didn't have that finish that we would normally see in a perfect match. The back and forth kind of that you'd get from a pay-per-view match, or indeed like a New Japan match or something. So yeah, I completely agree with that, but that's still not enough for me to say this isn't my match of the year, because it is. It kind of won me over, even though I came from a position of I can't give this a perfect score because it's a hardcore match. So yeah, like, it won me over in terms of storytelling, which I thought there wasn't a big base for. It won me over in terms of it being a hardcore match and not a traditional technical match. Just a good match, I think. So next week we have FTR with Tully Blanchard, obviously, versus Matt and Mike Sydal. Mike Sydal, making his AEW Dynamite debut. We have Hangman Page, Matt Hardy, and Private Party versus Hybrid 2 and Chaos Project. That combo we all love so much coming back. We have Sting calling out Team Taz for a change. We have Serena Deeb versus Riho in the Women's World Championship Elimination Tournament. We have the Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Thoughts on these matches, lads?
For me, it's not gripping me, but there was another card, I think a week or two ago, which didn't grip me, and it ended up having some good matches. If I had to pick match I'm most looking forward to, you can't look behind. You can't look beyond Serena Deeb Riho for me. Return of Riho, Serena Deeb, just an absolute star. It's amazing that we're picking our match we're looking forward to most of the women's match. This is
just 2021 the girls have had.
That's what I mean, and it's amazing that we, they've done so well so far and they're keeping it going. Other matches for me.
None of the good stuff this year has really been tied to their champion either. Like, in fact, my low point in the women's division this year has been tied to the champion, which was Hiroshi's match with Abaddon. Yeah,
for sure. But other matches, our favourite tag team, Chaos Project, can't wait to talk about them again next week.
So excited.
I know. But I am looking forward to Private Party, Matt Hardy and Hangman. So that's the only thing with them matches where, one half is really you're looking forward to seeing, the other half's not. But I'm going to pass over to Liam and see what he's looking forward to most.
I'm really looking forward to Young Bucks versus Santana Ortiz, because both tag teams are absolutely brilliant in ring, and I don't know whether, because obviously I don't really know whether the Young Bucks are face or heel at the minute. I think it changes by the week. So I don't know whether this is going to be similar to the acclaimed Jericho MJF, where it's two heel tag teams. And I don't know whether, obviously it's a short storyline that will last a week, but I don't know whether MJF and the rest of the Inner Circle are going to come out and potentially even cost them the match without realising, and that will maybe sow the seeds for the next ones to leave, if they are the ones to leave. Obviously, we don't really know what's happening with that. Riho versus Serena Deeb should be a very, very good match as well. To quote Jack as well, I'm actually quite excited for the women's match next week, which just shows how far AEW have come with their women's division over the last 365 days and however else long compared to how it was at the start.
So, match of the night for you guys? Let's go guess first. Liam, what was your match of the night?
Match of the night for me had to be the main event. It was a pretty solid show overall, but the main event was still a level above everything else, despite what I said earlier about the match in question. It just felt that it had, obviously I feel that there could be improvements, but I still feel that it had a little bit of everything. And if you're a casual viewer, that's watching the show for the first time, and you see them fall in a ring, and you see, I think it was Archer put Omega through that Peter Avalon's bed or whatever it is. And obviously, if you see that the first time, you're going to be like, "Whoa, what's this? Like, what's going on here?" Like,
You know
it
what?
was
It
very
felt
chaotic.
it felt very Attitude Era as well.
Yeah.
You know, they had the person not just because it was a hardcore match, but the personalities they had in there. People like Mox and people like Archer, very reminiscent of that era, and just the fun of it as well. It was a fun match. It was fun and serious at the same time, which is what Attitude Era did so well. Silly and serious. You know what I mean? It had Mox hitting a guy with a potato. It also had this very real kind of feel of, you know, hating each other going on and really kind of serious emotions flying about, which was the good thing about the Attitude Era. Jack, do I even have to ask what your match of the night was?
Yeah, you do actually. I think my match of the night was actually Lee Johnson and Cody versus Peter Avalon and Caesar Bononi. I think that just stole it. No, obviously I'm joking, guys.
Jack, can you pronounce his name right?
See, I'm just giving you the opportunities to, come up with more. So that's what we're doing here.
I know what's wrong about my pronunciation of Caesar Backgammon, Jack. I resent the implication.
But no, yeah, main event for me. I mean, like I said, best main event Dynamite's had since Street Fight. It's obviously going to be my match of the night.
Obviously. Very notable mention to Darby Allin versus Joe Janela. I was rooting for it. I got to be honest. I really love that match. Not to be, though, the main event, as it should be, the best match of the night. I think only once so far since we started doing this podcast has a match other than the main event been our match of the night, which I think was when we voted for Serena Deeb versus Tay Conti over an Inner Circle tag main event, which had
that was
a bit of a janky finish. Yeah, good match, but had a bit of a janky finish. But, you know, credit to AEW's booking. The best match should be the last match, and it has, for the most part, been that way this year. Thanks for listening. It's been interesting having you on, Liam.
Thank you very much, and most importantly, fuck hot tubs.
Will you, after you have a few more baths with your family, will you come back and entertain us again sometime when we need you to fill in?
Yes, and I do think in future we could potentially upload it to YouTube, and I'll have a camera so you can all watch me bath with my family, quote unquote.
Sorry, what?
Maybe we could all do a podcast together in person after Corona, in a bath together.
That sounds brilliant. I'd love that. Thank you.
Recorded live in a hot tub.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Well, I like to steal a different wrestler's catchphrase at the end of every recording. I never know what it is until I do it. Suck it.